It's a great pleasure to have Mr. Timothy Olawale, the Director, Membership Services of NECA, in the studio. It's a pleasure having you on SaharaTv studio, sir.
Same here.
What are your thoughts on this land use charge?
Well, thank you very much. Number one, the land use charge law is not new. It was first promulgated in the year 2002. And the law was resisted then because it's like the same scenario is playing out itself again, because it was deemed unfriendly and capable of stifling business. This year, we had the Lagos State House of Assembly invited us for a public hearing on the land use charge law, that it was going to be reviewed. We attended the public hearing, but for us, it was just an exercise to fulfill our righteousness because of what transpired there. To say the least, it did not meet basic legislative standards when you talk about public hearings. As a matter of fact, our representative who spoke on behalf of the organized private sector was given just 2 minutes to make his presentation, not giving consideration to the weighty matter at hand. Besides that, I'm just trying to stress the process that led to the promulgation of the law. Besides that, when we discovered that we were not given ample time to drive home our point, we made a submission in writing. However, the outcome of the exercise, as reflected in what transpired eventually, what became the law, showed that it was never considered. And at the public hearing, all stakeholders were very vehement in their opposition to the promulgation of that law, to the review, to the proposed quantum of increase in the review. We are not against review, but the outcome did not reflect the opinion and the views of all stakeholders. Whereas the public hearing is supposed to be an avenue for government to gauge the views and the thoughts of stakeholders on a particular issue. That was not the case with regards to the land use charge law. So our opinion were not respected. Now the outcome is history. We already knew that not only NECA, the entire organized private sector, as composed of NECA, MAN, NASME, NASI, NASIMA, LCCI, were miffed by the outcome. Even other stakeholders like the surveyors, the Institute of Surveyors, had also released their position that they were also stunned by the outcome. As a matter of fact, they said they were not consulted.
Part of your, appraisal, while giving this background was to talk about the fact that you made a submission to the Lagos State House of Assembly during the public hearing. And these submissions were not even introduced into even the law. What were the submissions that were made?
Specifically, number one, the issue of consultation. Before you review such a law, as a matter of fact, in 2002, one of the agreements with organized private sector by government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu then was that subsequent review, before any subsequent review, organized businesses will be consulted and their opinion and views on the changes that will be sought and factored into the review of the law. This was not done. I've heard government say in different fora that they consulted widely, that the executive consulted widely before sending the bill to the National Assembly. And I've always asked the question, which stakeholders did you consult with?
That's right.
All the arms of organized businesses who are directly affected or impacted by this particular law, none of them confirmed that they were consulted. Institute of Surveyors, there are professional bodies that are connected with real estate and issues of land, claim they were not consulted, and so on and so forth. So who were those stakeholders that were consulted? And I've also made reference to what transpired at the State House of Assembly. Beyond consultation, which we said consultation should precede legislation, we were also concerned with the quantum, the leap, and we suspected that might likely be the situation, which eventually played out. That when you want to review, the quantum of review should be moderate so that you don't kill business. Because already businesses are passing through their own fair share of stress. As a matter of fact, several businesses closed shop in the past 2 years due to inclement and unfriendly business environment in this Lagos state. And it is a statement of fact. I'm not conjuring it. If that was, and besides, let me just give an instance of some other issues that we are contending with. Recently, we had to battle the state government over its water sector law, Lagos State Water Sector Law. There has the provision that for every liter of water you abstract from the borehole that you have sunk for self-help because of failure in governance, government has failed to provide water for businesses and households to either do business or to live or survive. Now you have to resort to self-help and become your own government in spending your hard-earned revenue to provide water for yourself. Number one, you need permit to sink borehole. We are not against regulation. You also need licenses for your boreholes. That's okay. But when regulatory framework is tending towards pecuniary benefits, is pecuniary driven, now for every liter of water that you generate from that borehole, which you spent money for due to failure of government to provide water, you have to pay charges. And bills that were sent to businesses runs into hundreds of millions. We have businesses that were charged between 400 to 800 million. You want to close down businesses? Is that government's way of putting action to his words with regards to ease of creating a conducive environment for doing business? Is that how Nigeria is going to improve on the World Ease of Doing Business Index? These are questions that we are struggling to grapple with.
What impact will this law, this land use charge being introduced by the Lagos State government, what impact will it have in terms of multiplier effect on organized private sector?
Far-reaching impact. Number one, with the colossal increase, I have proofs here. I have an instance where the increase is as huge as 1,279%.
Wow.
I have another one here which is 800, and why I brought the documents is for you to be able to verify it. We've collated the bills from our members. What they paid last year just opposed with what has been served to them this year. And what are the impacts? Number one, the cost of businesses increases. Number two, naturally, it affects the cost price of goods. In other words, the public is affected as well because the purchasing power of the public is affected. Number three, profitability is reduced. And by extension, even taxes that ordinarily should have accrued to government based on profits will also be impacted. And most importantly, unemployment. Companies are struggling to keep workers on the job, believing that better times will come. And instead of working towards that better times together as stakeholders, government and businesses in partnership, what we find is the current situation, which means ultimately employees will be affected and the job market will be worse for it. Idle hands are said to be devil's workshop. We have more street boys, more area boys, more urchins, more ready hands for insurgents and the likes of Boko Haram. These are unfortunate situations that we hope it will not get to, which is why we have embraced government's offer for dialogue. The organized private sector has written the governor, latching on that offer, on that is proclamation that is willing and ready to dialogue with all stakeholders that are interested. If government opens its door for dialogue, just like it played out in 2002 when justice and equitability was allowed to reign, there is still hope that government can reverse its position and allow fair play and justice to prevail.
Who do you think should be blamed for this fox pop?
Well, rather than trade blames, I think the most important thing is to chart a way forward. We have found ourselves in this quagmire. What is the way out? And the simple way out is for us to sit. They say it's better to judge than to war. Let's sit, look at the issues, discuss, and we expect government to be humble enough to listen, not only to listen, but do the needful.
Will NECA and other organized private sector be calling for a downward review or an outright removal of this law? Is that part of your demands? What are your demands?
Like I said, we know a review is inevitable and we are not against it. But that review should be considerate and government should be sensitive to the realities on ground. What we have said is that the colossal review as it obtains now is unacceptable. Between 500 and over 1,000% review.
That's ridiculous.
There is no justification for it. And we have even proposed and tabled that, look, even if you want to double the rates by applying 100% review, 100% increase, which is like doubling it, which is very magnanimous of the organized private sector. It's never done in other climes. We said we are willing to accept an 100% increase. The valuation for the properties that were said to have been done, we believe it was not fairly done. Number one, who did those valuations? Number two, at what time? Because most of the businesses said they were never visited by valuers in their property. So we assume government just sat down and threw up figures, probably through what they call best of judgment. We've heard defenses in government circle that perhaps the gates were locked. The gates to those business premises were locked and they had no access. And in that situation, they will use best of judgment. Businesses don't seal up their premises like that. If it were to be private homes, probably that will happen. But businesses, in the worst scenario, there will be a security man or a gate man that will open the doors for you. And there will be records that you visited. Such records were not to be found. So we have also proposed that, look, if you are going to value, let it be done by independent professionals, which will be acceptable to both parties. Then we know there is fairness. And even at that, as it is done in other climes as well, whatever the outcome of that valuation is, should be subjected to a minimum of 50% discount. It's not peculiar to Nigeria alone. So when we are thinking of creating a society that's mega city or that's at par with those foreign climes.
Part of the argument of the government was the fact that they're looking at the infrastructural deficiency in the Lagos State, and they're trying to make up for that. What are your thoughts? What are your perspectives on the reasons for this?
I'm sure you've heard that maxim before, that Rome was not built in a day. A smart city or a mega city will not happen overnight. It's a gradual process. And while we subscribe to a smart city vision of government, what we are saying is that it should not be at the detriment of the residents of Lagos State. You should not put a gun to their head to realize that vision. You should carry them along and also consider their welfare in creating a better society for the future. You don't kill the present crops of Lagosians to create a good environment for the future generation. So we are all for it, but it should be work in progress through partnership with all relevant stakeholders. And like I said, it will not happen overnight. Every stakeholders and residents in Lagos State, their welfare should be paramount to the Lagos State government.
Mr. Timothy Olawale, we thank you very much for this insightful analysis.
It's our pleasure.